Hi, thanks for tuning in. So, Linnell here. It is my great privilege to get to sit down here with Senator Caryn Tyson. We're going to talk property taxes. So often I hear people saying, oh, all our politicians, they're corrupt. They don't care about us. I'm telling you, that is not the case. And I am sitting down with someone who works so hard for us. It's my honor to sit down and discuss this with you. So thank you so much for your work. Know that there's a lot of elected officials out there working hard to maintain freedoms. And I want to celebrate that. Grateful for them. And what can we do as a citizenry to really promote good policies? And right now, the topic at hand is property taxes. So, here we go. We're at a time that we're getting in the mail, or should be soon, letters from our counties, the county that we live in, entitled Revenue Neutral, and lists of meetings and what is this and why should we care and does it matter?
We are, and it's legislation that we passed in 2021, so people have seen these letters for a couple of years now, but I don't think they realized what they were. The first year it came out, it said ad valorem, and
What's that?
exactly, most people don't associate that with property taxes, but it is, the letter's been changed, and now the title says proposed property tax increases. So you will know who is proposing to increase your property taxes, when they are having a meeting to vote on whether they increase or not. And before that meeting, public comment has to occur. It's in statute that is part of the process. So we want people to show up and to be heard by their representatives. It is.
So if I understand correctly, this letter goes out letting people know that, hey, your taxing entities, your local taxing entities are thinking about raising your property taxes. And then there's an opportunity for you to be heard, to show up to a meeting, be heard, and then do the authorities, say the county commissioners or the city council or whoever it may be at that meeting making the decision, do they then have to make some decision in front of everybody there?
Absolutely. That's great. Linnell knew the answer to that one. They absolutely do have to vote at the meetings. We have taxation with representation.
We try to.
We do. We do. And that's what this legislation forced. It forced so that we have transparency in the process. We know who raised the property taxes and you know why. And now you have a voice before those taxes increase.
I think that's so important, and I understand that you built this bill. You're an architect of the bill. So how did you, prior to 2021 or in 2021, come up with the ideas of this bill?
So nothing happens in a vacuum in the legislature. It's always a team effort, and I had a great team of people to work with in order to get this across the line. And we had people that you wouldn't even expect that were helping out on this legislation. But I modeled it after Tennessee and Utah. They had similar processes in place, and they had been in place for over 20 years in both states. Well, I got to looking, Minnesota also has a similar practice. Nebraska has something not quite like this, but they do send notices out so that people are aware beforehand. So I did model it after other states, but we took it a step further, and we did not exclude new development, and other states did. So if you have new development now, we always say that new development will help lower taxes, and it didn't in the past. You wouldn't see the benefit of it. But now the valuation, that's part of the total valuation. And so in order to, if they stay revenue neutral, means they collect the same amount of money as the previous year. And that's what we want most of them to do. I mean, we know there's times they're going to have to raise taxes, but for the most part, the goal should be to keep the same dollar amount as the previous year. And so that way, when you have new development, new businesses coming online, then it will lower property taxes for everyone if they stay neutral.
Very good. I can almost hear the thoughts of those watching saying, not lower taxes, what do you mean by that? And just revenue neutral rate, meaning the aggregate, the total property tax amount coming in doesn't go up. So that makes sense. New building,
Yeah.
if they decide to stay revenue neutral, is going to help the individual.
Right, right.
'Cause
We'll
it
actually
contributes.
see some benefit from it.
Yeah,
Yeah, for the
very
first
good.
time, yeah. But it is aggregate, that it is the total property tax that they are not collecting anymore. So individual valuations may fluctuate, and individuals may see an increase because they remodeled
Sure.
or put an addition on their home, but
Sure.
for the most part, no. And one of the things we talked about that people need to be aware of is if you do normal maintenance on your home, that should not increase the valuation. That legislation was also in this revenue neutral.
Mm.
When we passed it in 2021, they both passed into law.
Excellent.
So I don't know if that helps or not, but to me it does. It makes
Yeah.
sense. You should not be punished or penalized because you're trying to maintain your home.
Right.
Yeah.
We get these letters in the mail. I see it as an invitation to show up, hopefully large groups of people, and say, we really don't want our property taxes to go up. But that takes an evening out of our time. It means reading the details of the letter, maybe knowing where your tax dollars are spent. Why does that matter? Why is that even a worthwhile endeavor for somebody to try to go to a meeting and say, please don't raise our taxes?
I think it's very important to be heard. We are a representative government, and so our people that are governing need to hear from their constituents. And that is one of the major issues that we hear. And I had a representative call me last week. They didn't realize how big of an issue property taxes was until they were going door to door for a campaign. And I was like, wow, please come to my district because I can tell you how big of an issue it is statewide. But there's over
Nationwide.
Actually, you're right. You were on a national
Everybody's
interview.
fired up about
That's
how
true.
property taxes.
Yeah.
Like, stop taking what's ours.
Absolutely. You're renting from the government, and we need to get our rent down, lowered, if not removed.
Oh
But,
my goodness.
yeah. So we're still researching, trying innovative ideas. I'm always listening to people because it doesn't, like I said, happen in a vacuum. We're going to
Right.
solve this together and working together, and that's what we want to do. But there's over 4,000 property taxing authorities in the state of Kansas. Over 4,000. And I can say, as a result of this legislation, 55% stayed neutral last year. They did not increase above revenue neutral.
That's good.
It's really good.
Over half.
And we wouldn't have known that if we wouldn't have had this legislation,
Right.
and if we weren't bringing the issue to the forefront.
Right.
So we're not trying to hurt local government. We still want local control, but we want them to take a deep dive and look at their budget. And what was exciting this year is Wyandotte County Unified Government. They voted unanimously to stay neutral this year.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so they are not collecting
Wonderful.
more money than last year.
I have to wonder too, and this is a whole nother topic of conversation, but if, say, at the county level, there could be fewer state regulations to the county mandating do X, Y, and Z.
So I am so happy you brought that up. Last year, that came up, and a couple of commissioners said they were tired of the state mandates.
Mhm.
So I asked for a list of state mandates that we could work on together. I have not received a list or any
Fascinating.
comments from them at all.
Maybe something
I
to,
keep asking. One of these
revisit.
days I'll get a list. I know I
Yeah.
will. But until we know what it is, we can't work on it because most of that
Right.
legislation or those mandates came before I was in the legislature,
Sure.
probably before others were in the legislature.
So which ones are problematic and how can we change them?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So why are you so involved? Why do you work so hard for this? Why do you even care? Because you're working hard to collect less revenue.
I am.
Why is that?
Yeah, and we had some major tax cuts this year, some good ones finally. The Social Security on state income tax, and we did cut the income tax brackets for everyone. And families will see some really good legislation there. But
We need
why? There's a couple of reasons. My background, I'm in software IT, and I had worked on some projects, and I saw so much waste with government.
Oh,
And I thought it can be so much more efficient.
right.
And I am working for the people. I mean, you know that. To me, this is what our government's about. And we can be so much more efficient than we are. And our taxes could be so much lower than they are in Kansas. We're some of the highest in the nation. We need to get those numbers down. We need to be a place where people want to move to and where they want to raise their families.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so much that we could do. And I say living in the Midwest, particularly where I live, the low cost of living is one of the biggest draws to
Mhm.
this. And then we tax people out of their homes. What are we doing? You know?
Exactly.
It's opposite. And the property tax assessments, the appraiser's work, it just seems so subjective. Am I wrong in thinking
No,
that?
I think you're spot on. It is very subjective. And how can you base, and we're basing a taxing system on subjective values. And I've been working and studying and trying to figure out how we can address that. Years ago, Kansas used to have a system that they taxed property based off the number of windows and doors on the property. Yeah, we've completely gotten away from that. But we really do need a system that works and is not subjective.
Continual process improvement.
Yes.
I mean, that's life.
Absolutely.
Right? That's
Every
it's so
system
hard.
can be improved. Yes.
And it seems to me that so many people just get so fired up about property taxes, left and right, owning, renting, whatever the case. People are fired up about ever increasing property taxes that are so subjective, really, when your appraised value goes up and up. And I've thought about this, and I think the reason that I get so fired up deep within my soul is it feels criminal. If you own something and the government says you have to give us more and more and more arbitrarily to keep what you own in the first place, I equate that to theft, and that is un-American.
It is an American. I understand where you're coming from. It seems like, and the onus is on the property owner
Yeah.
to dispute that your property is not worth the value that they're saying it's worth. And yeah, the system
Self-incriminating.
Yeah, it is. And the bad thing is, and we tried to address this in legislation, we need to look at it again. It didn't pass into law, obviously, but when you go to appeal your property tax, you're going to the person that set the value on it. So you're going to them to say, I don't agree with you. You didn't do a good job on this. Well, it's already somewhat confrontational. I mean, even the nicest people in the world, you're still telling them that they didn't get it right. And so we need to address that too. Like I said, there's so much work to do on this. It seems like, but the transparency part that we did get past
Yeah.
was a first step. It was a great step. And we need people to participate in those revenue neutral meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So, encouraging you all to attend, speak, even if it's very briefly. We need to let our voices be heard. Now, I'm all about funding the essential, the core functions of government. We need that, absolutely. But as individuals, we have limits to what our budgets are, and we do our best to stay within those limits. It feels to me as a citizen that government doesn't always see it that way, and I wish they would do zero-based budgeting and just be more careful.
We actually, I asked for that with the Department of Agriculture a few years ago, and they did a zero-based budget. They had no
Right.
idea how difficult it would be, but they put the time and the effort in. And as a result, we did change legislation for the budget process. We now have a performance-based budget,
Oh, wow.
but most of the agencies and departments weren't doing it, and I think that it was somewhat subjective in the implementation of it. So the legislature needs to come back and take a closer look at that. But a zero-based budget absolutely needs to be looked at. And most people, what we have used in Kansas, most people is a baseline budget. So they start from the previous year's budget, assuming that, and then they go up from there. And if they don't have an increase, then they say they had a budget cut, even if it was an expense that they didn't incur that same year or that next year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, zero-based budget, that means you start from zero and you look at everything in the budget and make sure that it's expenditures that actually need to be spent. At the local, state,
Yeah.
federal level, we have so much government waste, so much. And we've lost sight of what our government's for.
Yeah.
And we can't keep turning to them to solve all our problems, and then, this is what we get. So I'm looking for smaller, smarter, more efficient
I
government.
can't thank you enough for all your work and for taking the time to sit down with me today. Again, dare I say, emphasized plea, please, if you care about rising property taxes, get involved, go to the meeting, email if you're not able to go. Certainly, elections matter. Know how your people vote. Vote for the people who are going to stand with your values. More coming on that later. And thank you so much, Senator Tyson. God bless you for your work.
You too.